Maybe more than any other place in the country, local media in Philadelphia, they love doing stories about how black people are relentless victims of white racism. All the time, everywhere. That explains everything. That explains why black people are disciplined more in school, why they're suspended more, why they're expelled more, why they don't do as well as white and Asian students in schools. That's a huge story. They do that all the time in Philly. They do the stories about how when a black person gets arrested, the only reason the cops arrested them is because they're black and they're picking on black people for no reason whatsoever. They did a story a few months ago up in Philly at a Starbucks. A couple of the fellas refused to leave a Starbucks because they just didn't want to buy anything, and they were asked to leave. That was a national story when the cops had to come in and basically say, "Oh, okay, you guys, you got to leave now." It's a big deal. But stories that go the other way, which are much more common in Philadelphia, about black violence, black criminality, wildly out of proportion in a place like Philadelphia, well, those you kind of have to force feed to the media. You have to get them in, they have to happen in such a way that they're almost impossible to ignore, that even if they try to ignore them, well, even they're not that good. This happened yesterday. This happened yesterday. 200 black people were rioting for 2 hours on the streets of Philadelphia. 200. 3 cops were hurt. 14 teenagers, air quotes, were arrested. 14 people were arrested after a riot involving 200 people. Anyway, let's take a look at that story.
We have new video of the large after-school fight that landed more than a dozen kids in trouble and officers injured. This fight happened in the McDonald's parking lot near the train stop in Hunting Park. NBC 10's Keith Jones is here. You're following developments for us, Keith.
That's right, Jim. Let's get right to that new video of what police called a riotous scene involving as many as 200 students. NBC 10 obtained this video, posted to Instagram, showing the massive brawl. It prompted a giant police response to the parking lot of a McDonald's bordering Broad Street, the Roosevelt Boulevard, and Hunting Park Avenue. Dozens of police officers rushed to that scene. Here's some video of that. Skyforce 10 capturing the efforts to stop the violence. This went on for almost 2 hours today. Police say 14 students were either detained, arrested, or cited. Here's more video taken with a cell phone this time. You can see this officer right here attempt to put handcuffs on a student. 3 officers were reportedly injured, ranging from cuts on the hand to a separated shoulder. Perhaps the best perspective right here, you can count at least 28 police vehicles surrounding that McDonald's right there, traffic barely getting by on this road, which is Broad Street. We talked to a mom whose daughter was attacked in the fight.
When she was walking away, she got hit in the back of her head with a fist. And next thing you know, she said she was on the ground and she was getting kicked in the face and punched on. She said it happened so quick.
And that mother told us her daughter is doing okay. There's no word on whether other students were injured besides bruised and bloodied, maybe. Police are trying to figure out exactly how this fight started in the first place. Keith Jones, NBC 10 News. Back to you, Jim.
Wild afternoon there, Keith. All right.
The local Philadelphia paper, they kind of buried the story way down on their website. And because the main story in the paper today was about women serving on board of directors in Philadelphia. It was kind of a big think piece about, well, we got to have more women sitting on these boards of directors. Meanwhile, 200 black people rampaging through the streets of Philadelphia gets buried. Lots of people aren't running comments on these kind of stories. You guys know that. CBS, the CBS affiliate in Philadelphia, they did a short story which was distinguished by the comments. They ran at least 100 comments as of this morning, as of the day after the riot, where of the 100 comments, probably 98% were, listen, this is what this is a deceptive story. We know that violence in Philadelphia is a black thing. We know that the media doesn't likes using euphemisms to cover up what it really is. And we know that the media is constantly reporting stories about how black people are victims when they're not really victims. There was a story in at least one of the Philadelphia media today, a big story. I think the hashtag was like living while black or something like that. And it was all about the guy who walked into his condo apartment and he didn't, he walked into his unit and one of the people who worked there said, hey, you have to show us your key or you have to go back and unlock the door so we know that you live here. He took that to mean there were going to be 10,000 members of the KKK out to lynch him in a minute. And everybody was all pissed off and everybody was all sure this was a demonstration of unrelenting white racism. Damn. If you live in how many videos have we seen here? Especially in New York, somebody opens their door, they're going into their apartment, and before they close the door, they try to close the door behind them, but before it locks, all of a sudden, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people rush in, beat the piss out of usually a woman in there, beat the piss out of the woman. That's a black thing. And now it's unreasonable to sit there and say, hey, would you mind showing me you live here by following the rules, going out, coming back in, using your key? Is that too much to ask? Apparently it is. In the same way it's too much to ask the local media to pay attention to this, to connect some dots, to remind people how often this happens. Yes, it happens a lot in Philadelphia. It happens a lot all over the damn country. Now, where are the activists out here going, yes, we're always picking on black people in schools. We got to change that. I mean, that's an article of faith in Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, they have a mayor, a district attorney, and a police chief who are on the same page about all three things. That black people are victims. That's how they ran. That's how they got elected. The mayor and district attorney in Philly are that's like Heckle and Jekyll. That's the most dangerous duo in America now. For denying, ignoring, excusing, condoning, encouraging, and even lying about the level of black violence and criminality. They believe black people are being picked on, and when they're arrested only because the white guy's doing the same thing, but cops pick on black people. Let's see how long that lasts. Let's see how often this kind of stuff keeps happening. And let's see how much longer it is before people in Philadelphia get sick of it. But of course, getting sick of black criminality wildly out of proportion is guaranteed to make the black kids angry.